That is the sound of a distracted, divided, and dead American until they hear. Battle for Freedom, triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Hello everyone, this is your host Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom and Mojo Fiber Radio, and I'm glad every last one of you are tuning in today as we get another day under the way. I'm your host Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom and Mojo Fiber Radio, and let's do this thing here as we sit here talking about Lester Holt, the Lester Holt Standard Part 2. Yesterday we were talking about the whole idea of the Muertes del Periodismo. El Muerte del Periodismo. Today, we're going to sit here talking about the fourth estate of depravity. My website's Battle4Freedom.com. I want you to go there as fast as you possibly can. Share it out with as many people as you can, as well as I want you to go to Mojo50.com. The reason why I want you to go to Mojo50.com is because of the fact that you click the button schedule and you'll find out that the Pat Oney Show, if you were listening online, the Pat Oney Show was on earlier just before this broadcast. This is if you're listening in your car on iHeartRadio or Spreaker or iTunes. If you want to listen live to the program, go to Mojo50.com, connect and share it out with as many people as you possibly can. But see, I've been talking about this whole idea of this false standard of what the news looks like and how they try to communicate quote unquote truth to us. But we see that that's not always the case when we need to hear that. Now, I'm not going to try and lie to you, because one thing I do want to tell you about is American Pride Roasters coffee, specifically Watson's White Chocolate Caramel, when you want to talk about great coffee and the truth of the official coffee of American Pride Roasters coffee. Take a listen to this one here. This is the truth. That's it. I've hit the snooze button a dozen times, and now I have to finally get going. But I'm not going to do this day right if I don't start it off with a cup of American Pride Roasters coffee, the official coffee of Mojo Fiber Radio. But I'm not going to lie to you. They have a wide variety of blends, but I'm leaning towards the one that's named after me, Watson's White Chocolate Caramel. You know what? It sounds as good as those words that just rolled off of my mouth. Listen, get it today. AmericanPrideRoasters.com. Tell them that Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you, and you want Watson's White Chocolate Caramel blend to start your day off. Join American Pride Roasters Coffee and Mojo Fiber Radio, and most important, Battle for Freedom, as we celebrate the best coffee in the nation, American Pride Roasters. Yes, share it out to as many people as you possibly can. And not only American Pride Roasters Coffee, folks, because there's another one I want you to understand. I really appreciate the sponsors who continue to stick with us and really encourage this amazing network that's always going to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's New Life Holistic. Does your mind seem like it often shuts down before it even starts? Sounds like you need to detox to improve your health in body, mind, and spirit. I'd like to tell you about New Life Holistic. It is an amazing therapy process that uses neurofeedback and biofeedback for many issues that ails everyone. New Life's method and approach to health, balance, energy, and vitality is what sets it apart from anything you have experienced ever before. Call 1-833-4-BIO-LIFE and tell them Watson from Battle for Freedom has sent you. One more thing. Give them the code MOJO50 and save $50 off of your first session. The consult is free. New Life Holistic. Yes, New Life Holistic. Share it out to as many people as you possibly can, because in so doing, this is how we get the information out to everyone who needs to know, who needs to matter when we talk about healing from all things evil in this world. New Life Holistic. I appreciate every last one of you as we get into this. Yesterday we were talking about Lester Holt, and many people, I see Carolyn, Lisa, Heidi, Linda, Mitchell, Lep, Josh and Jill, and Curtis, thank you for joining. They went to Facebook.com/Mojo Fiber Radio to leave a comment and basically go from there to see, to interact, and appreciate every last one of them. So there's a couple things that have happened in the news in the last 24 hours. I believe I heard the Daily Mojo comes on at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Standard Time. They were talking about this yesterday, and I thought it was very interesting. I'll get into what they were sharing, but the one that really gets me more is this latest shooting. Are you guys aware of the fact that we had another shooting? We had another mass shooting within a 3-week period of time? First we start off with the tragedy that happened in Atlanta. That was white supremacy and white hate and Asian hate. Even though 2 victims were not Asian, it's Asian hate is where we focus and we put all our energies into this thing here. And then we moved on to Colorado, where 10 whites were killed by a Muslim. But we don't want to talk about that kind of hate because of the fact that there's only one side that needs to be pushed when we're pushing this narrative of hatred and violence in this country. Because we moved from this ideology of loving guns and glory and Trump and everything like that from Atlanta to, it was a mentally unstable individual that was in California. I mean, in Colorado. Then there was a Hispanic man who killed 4 in California. But we don't want to talk about that one there. And now, because this is the funny thing about this is, as I kept saying, I had a meme I posted out shortly after the tragedy in Atlanta, and I said, why do I get this sick feeling in my stomach? We're going to see more and more of these as the day goes on. And I can't even tell you exactly how many more where we were going to be facing with. But unfortunately, here we are. We sit here today again as a result, another mass shooting. And this one was something that happened over the weekend in Texas. And here you go. Let's check out this story because there's some facts I need to tell you about this one, which is really troubling when I talk to you about this story. Here it is. He writes a story. Hey everyone, I killed myself and my family. Chilling letter of details how college dropout 19-year-old and his brother made a pact before shooting dead their parents, sister, and grandmother and committed suicide. Farhan Tawhid, 19, and his 21-year-old brother Tanvir allegedly carried out the murder-suicide that killed their sister, parents, and grandmother. 6 bodies were found inside of their home in Allen, Texas on, this situation. And it's really interesting because when you look at his letter, they say Farhan wrote about his battle with depression, his issues with the show Office, and ranted about the lack of gun control. The lack of gun control. So they decide that this young man decided that he's going to take his life. He's going to take the life of everyone else on what's going on here. This is really sad because if you pay attention to the news, if you pay attention to what's being said, you have to listen closer to the details. Because when you find out about this, that this kid even admits, now they're going to focus on his statement about the lack of gun control. How convenient that the lack of gun control, and he decides that he's going to make a pact. Now, mind you, it's not about gun control, but watch the Dems decide to create Farhan's law, where they're going to push out this narrative that, you see, we need better gun control because people like Farhan won't kill themselves. Mind you, this kid has been he has been clinically diagnosed as depressed since the 9th grade. So going back almost 4 years, 4 or 5 years, he had been depressed. And you sit here and you look at what was going on in the news. At that time, you had the Lester Holts, you had the Chris Cuomo's, you had the Rachel Maddow's, and you had every last one of them who were basically pushing doom and gloom on these children because Donald Trump was made president of the United States of America. The doom and gloom, as Lester Holt sits here and says that we have to be fair, the fairness is overrated, and kids don't need to see a clearer picture of the news rather than the propaganda and the agendas that have been pushing out through this thing. This is what has made these children suicidal. This is what's made these children depressed. This is what's ruining the minds of the innocent and unknowing in America. So he kills, be prepared, count down, set the timers. So because we went from a white shooter to a Muslim shooter, to a Hispanic shooter, to a black shooter here in Indianapolis, to now we have an Indian shooter. Or not even an Indian shooter. His family's from Bangladesh. So we're hitting the whole spectrum of all these convenient shootings that are taking place right now, right at the height when they're trying to push forward all this anti-gun legislation. I had a conversation with a family member. We were talking about this, where they were disappointed about the fact that a lot of states are removing the requirement or mandate that you actually have to have an ID or you have to have a permit in order to possess a gun. And see, and this is the problem that happens when we make everybody emotional and not thinking these things through. So let's ask the good question here. Because right now we're in the process of watching criminals don't get background checks. Criminals do not get background checks. So why are we going to penalize the other people who aren't criminals? Remember, the criminals are already walking around without a gun permit. So why are we going to make it harder for American citizens who are law-abiding to defend themselves? Let me help you understand something. Yesterday, I had to take my car into Discount Tires to repair. There was a screw in my tire, looked intentional, and there was another wheel that had to be replaced. So when I dropped my car off at Discount Tires. Then I decided, oh, you know what? I've got a couple of these DVDs from Redbox. I'm going to go return them and go from there. So as I was walking over, I had my camera with me, my tripod, and I'm taking some pictures while I'm out there. I'm walking and waiting for the car to be serviced, the wheels to be serviced, tires to be serviced. And as I deposit the DVDs into Redbox, and I return the DVDs to Redbox, and I start turning to exit Walmart, because the DVD rental, Redbox rental unit is about 10 feet from the door. And as I'm turning away to go and leave and exit Walmart, here comes this young black kid, late teens to early 20s. And he's running out the door, and you actually have a few more people chasing after him as he's running out the door. And I'm like, what the hoo-hey? Now, mind you, this is within 4 feet of who I am, of where I'm standing. So I go out to see exactly what's going on. I'm actually on the phone with Dominic Izzo from the Ranch of Izzo at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Check him out, for a retired police officer. And so as I'm sitting there watching this whole thing unfold, this black kid ran to what looked like could have been a getaway car, but the person in the getaway car decided to go park their car like they were going to go into a Walmart and shop. Black kid runs all the way to the back of the parking lot, and in the meanwhile, Dominic's like, can you make sure yourself is safe? Dominic's like, dude, stop, get yourself safe, because just in case, basically he's saying bullets about to start flying, and it makes no sense for you to just stand out there unprepared. As you're sitting here watching this thing unfold, and people keep thinking, and I watch, he had a cart of items. He tried to push a cart of items outside of Walmart. Mind you, there's a police cruiser outside. And the policeman jumps into his car, and he turns around, and he's driving around the parking lot. Come to find out that the black kid jumped into his SUV at the very end of the parking lot and decided to hide in the car like he wasn't even there. Matter of minutes, police officer just pulls up to the car, takes him out, handcuffs him, puts him in the back of the cruiser. And now you know the rest of the story. See, this whole idea is that crime is going to continue to happen, and there are people who don't care, because guess what? There's been this law around saying you shouldn't take things. There's a written law. There are things against, larceny, petty theft, all these different laws that we have on the books. Now, New York may not consider them serious enough, and they'll let you out on these petty charges, and the criminals never learn, because they go right back out and they commit the crimes again. But needless to say, I distracted from a second, or let's get back on task here. Criminals don't abide by the law. So why make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves and defend themselves? Not having a license does not deter the criminals. it only deters the law-abiding citizens if you require that they have a license. Period. But as long as the news continues to report this stuff, because you have to ask yourself, in the story where Farhan decided to kill himself, his brother and his family in the murder-suicide, where did they get the gun from? Where did they get the gun from? Because specifically knowing that you had a child just suffering from depression and so much. So what was the brother basically suffering from when he was willingly and lucidly able to plan the murder of his parents, his sister, and his grandmother and themselves? What was it? Hello? We can't answer that question, can we? But we can sit here and make it more difficult for other American citizens to survive because we want to push this narrative that gun control works. We want to push this narrative that more government intervention and regulations are going to fix the situation. And wrong. Try again. This is where we are. I don't know if they arrested the driver as well because of the fact that I just took Dominic Izzo's I took Dominic his advice and just pretty much removed myself from the scene, so I didn't end up with any bullet holes. Take care, Kathy, and appreciate you being here. That's why they are called criminals, exactly, Carolyn, because they don't abide by laws. But here, you want to find out a little bit more on the criminal side here. But like I said, remember for Farron's Law, because that's what they're going to push out next, because they want to be sympathetic to the idea that this young boy who is struggling with all this depression, the only thing that they're going to focus on in this story that the Democrats are going to hit is the fact that he didn't like the lax gun laws. Here you go. Mark my words. Then let's go with, this is what I heard yesterday on the Daily Mojo. And so they were talking about this whole idea, if I'm correct, this is the Daily Mojo was talking about this yesterday. But Florida Dems slam intentionally false 60 Minutes for claiming Republican Governor DeSantis cut pay-for-play vaccine deal with Publix and say CBS left out the fact that they backed the plan because it kneecaps their narrative. Okay, wait, hold on a second, Lester Holt. Where you Lester. You remember when you said that fairness is overrated? You remember when you said that let's just, here it is. Florida Democrats are calling out CBS, the media. The mainstream media. You remember how Lester Holt was talking about everybody, they paid attention to us, but then all of a sudden came Facebook and smartphones, and everybody is now, you're these fly-by-night sensations of news, and you're taking attention away from us. You remember the whole idea that they were saying that people lost trust? They lost trust in the media for reasons exactly like this. Oh, can you feel the passion? Can you feel the intensity here? What must the people who just gave Lester Holt the award had to be clenching their butt cheeks like, what in the world did we do? Who did we just select? And we just gave this an award, and he just said this abomination of truth. Well, a false truth, because it wasn't the truth what Lester Holt was saying. Let's go into what Lester Holt was saying. Because this is...
to understand it all and find perspective. And I can tell you we take that responsibility very seriously.
Not.
Of all the things our nation is grappling with, in my opinion, the most worrisome is the death of truth and trust in our institutions. And please know this is something I've expressed worries about going back long before this previous administration.
So I want to briefly stop him for a second here, because remember, I talked about this yesterday where he said, take care, Amy. He said, basically, this happened long before the previous administration. Again, everything has to be against the previous administration, right? Now, because he's talking about social media is in this. Remember, I said that Facebook, Twitter, and Facebook, Twitter, and one more. Oh, MySpace. All of them were between 2004 and 2008 where they started pushing out this thing. But remember, the disinformation has happened even long before social media. Long before you had this. See, you'll turn around and you start watching this stuff as that they don't want to hear. They don't want to acknowledge the truth that they have been lying for so long. You had to come up with alternative media because the media refused to report it. I said to a lot of my family and friends, oh my goodness, I'm watching mainstream media. Now, mind you, in 2004, I voted for Bush. But I could not believe the amount of media. I watched the news. I watched every channel. I wasn't pro Fox and pro this and pro that. I watched MSNBC. I watched CNN. I watched ABC. I watched CBS. I watched the BBC. I watched NPR. I watched them all. And I was surprised about the overwhelming disdain and hatred the media had for George Bush. That I sat there and I watched that literally 89% of the news that I was watching was anti-George Bush. The media had, the only thing that you had against John Kerry at that time was the Swift boat veterans was the only thing that was out there, but the media tried to make it seem like that was the dominant news on the face that was going on there. It was the biggest lie. And when I sat there and I watched this, I'm like, this is insane. How in the world can you have this much anti-Bush stuff? No wonder you're going to have people, so Bush lied, people died, Bush lied. Bush lied, people died doesn't matter anymore because Bush is now against Trump. The same people who rode the Bush lied, people died horse train all the way to the fact that all the legs broke off and even the mare, the hair from the mare was falling out, needing Rogaine for this horse. They rode that horse to death. And now they've changed their narrative. They've changed their tunes. Oh, George Bush is so sweet. How finicky, how fickle people are, how easy it is to manipulate them. And so now we have CBS, right after the Lester Holt Award, just proving the point. Your credibility was lost long before social media. You guys, you don't even measure up to the poop stains of a Walter Cronkite, Lester Holt. You don't even measure up to the skid marks in Walter Cronkite's underwear, if you want to talk about the whole idea of integrity and newsworthiness.
It's been a slow erosion, with the answers and conclusions already preloaded for us on social media or opinion-oriented programs. We have increasingly lost our critical thinking skills, the ability to hold things to the light and ask key questions for ourselves, unafraid that the answer may not be what we'd hoped.
Now, this is where there's going to be some modicum of truth in what he says. Have people lost their critical thinking skills? Yes, they have. See, say Podway. Sorry. I don't know where that came from. That's weird. That was odd. Cisse Podway, they have lost their ability to rationally think through the truth. And it's very sad, it's very depressing that we have actually come to this point where people can't use rational thinking. Okay, here's one for you. So Biden administration is basically saying, oh, guess what? You will not have to go off and get you won't have to show a vaccine passport to get anywhere. For those of you who have been vaccinated, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, so quick question for you. So then how do people know that you've been vaccinated if you don't show them your passport or your card? Okay? How do they know that you are vaccinated or not vaccinated if they don't? It's all about control. It's always been about control. People don't want to acknowledge it. People don't want to talk about it, but we're going to keep hitting this point home until people decide that they're going to really take this serious. We're going to talk more about this when we get back from the flip side, folks. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo 50 Radio, trying to help those of you who are struggling with the imagery of Walter Cronkite's skid marks understand this. It's more credible than the news media today.
You with your empty life, messing with people, you are causing strife. Where's your ounce of courage? In big tech, you're a bully, bothering conservatives. The void that's inside you can make you arrogant. But I see you fact-checking stuff that's true. But I see you fact-checking. That's why I hate you. So don't be a troll against our free speech. Fact-checking is messed up like a cow pie. Treat people right now. Stop your harassing, show more kindness. Please be more consistent. Censorship is crazy cause you've been attacking free speech. You say you're for the truth, don't practice what you preach. But I see you fact-checking stuff that's true. But I see you fact-checking. That's why I hate you. So don't be a troll against our free speech. Fact-checking is messed up like a cow pie.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo 50 Radio. I never said I wasn't touched. I never said I wasn't 30 cents short of a quarter. That's the reason why they beautifully allow me to be here on Mojo 50 Radio talking to you during the day and getting a lot of this stuff out of my system as best as I possibly can. I'm sitting here talking about the whole idea of the Lester Holt Standard Part 2, Part 2, for those of you who remember some really great movies in the 90s. But the whole idea of the fourth state of depravity. Because it's honestly depraved for the media to believe that we need to continue listening to them. They are depraved and deprived of any intelligence if they believe that we have to continue to be manipulated. And I've been trying to help a lot of family and friends. Folks, just because you can't find it on Google doesn't mean it doesn't exist. See, Lester Holt and what he's doing and the manipulations that he does for the truth really sets up why it is that Rush Limbaugh rightfully called them low information voters. Not as an insult. Well, he may have wanted to use it as an insult. I'm basically using this as a moment of rebuke for you. Because you are making decisions based on false statements, half-truths. Instead of doing your research and making certain that you're not being manipulated, you just keep going with talking points and you don't want to look outside of the story and recognize, are they telling me the truth or am I continually being manipulated here? Are they telling me the truth or am I constantly being manipulated here? Isn't it interesting that even Noah Green, the shooter, not the shooter, but the guy who rammed the Capitol, isn't it interesting? We're not having any conversations about Noah Green anymore. We'll talk about his conspiracy theories. We won't talk about the fact that he's part of the member of a nation of Islam, because that's another narrative that the media cannot get out, because it has to be the Christians. It has to be the Bible thumpers. It has to be the gun carriers. It has to be the gun-toting, Trump-supporting people who are out there that are the greatest threats to our country. So last time, when was the last time? And don't say January 6th was the last time you had Trump supporting gun toters storming the Capitol, because guess what? There were no guns. Hey, this is what the media doesn't want to tell you. 0 guns from the alleged stormtroopers that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. 0 guns. Oh, they forgot to tell you that. Oh, they forget to keep telling you about the whole idea that the person videotaping everything that took place and all the evidence that took place was a known Black Lives Matter Antifa supporter who conveniently get paid $70,000 for his videos. But we're not going to talk about that. No guns, no guns, no guns. But who has the guns lately? All the people despondent from the gun rights legislation to try and ruin and screw people over. Lord help us. But I tell you, the timing on CBS, what they did with not giving you all the truth about the DeSantis decision and what DeSantis was doing is perfect in light of what Holt, lying Lester, has to say.
Sometimes a story will drop in our laps in the newsroom. It seems huge, but then we begin to tug at it and pull at it, looking for holes, and suddenly it falls apart. You at home never see that story because we couldn't establish it or at least frame it in a reasonable way, so it never got on the air.
Well, see, that's where I beg to differ. Because of the fact that for years, your network has been pushing the narrative of Russian collusion. You pull the videos, you've pulled the news articles so that no one can actually look and see what you guys have been, the media, the ones who take this stuff seriously. You've pushed forward Russian collusion. You've pushed forward the quid pro quo. You push forward Stormy Daniels and every other accuser. You push forward Christine Blasey Ford. You push forward all these narratives without substantial evidence. You ignored the testimony of countless individuals who said that, guess what, Brett Kavanaugh wasn't there. But you didn't want to push that out there. Lester, I'm talking to you. Lester, listen to me. What happened? Why did you choose not to provide the critical and fairness information that would have given a bigger picture for people to look at, instead of countless Americans who blindly believed the accusations against Brett Kavanaugh? They knew in their heart of hearts that Brett Kavanaugh was guilty. They only heard one part of the information because of the fact that that's how easy people can be manipulated with one drop of information, and they run with it. See, this whole idea of what you said correctly earlier about people lacking the discernment skills and unable to critically think, countless Americans who wholeheartedly believed the guilt of Brett Kavanaugh, who wholeheartedly believed the guilt of Donald Trump, who wholeheartedly believed the guilt, but they refused to believe the guilt of Hillary Clinton. Why so? Is it possible because the death count of people who have information on her is not an open, threatening letter to them that you keep your mouth shut about me? Is it possible? Is it possible that the people who went to the voting polls, who sat there and they decided to say, you know what, I think I need to vote for the Democrats because they said nothing. They did nothing to stop. They did nothing to stop. And look what we have, folks. How many cities are burning? How many cities are burning right now? There aren't billions of dollars being lost because of destructions around our cities. Amazing how Black Lives Matter and Antifa have lost their savor and their desire to want justice in America now that Trump is out of office. It's almost like they got their cues from the Democrats. Oh, but we can't have that discussion, Lester. We can't have that discussion because that's part of the data that you guys selectively chew on and decide it's a nothing burger story, so you don't want to cover it. It's a nothing burger story in your distorted, rosy-colored glasses, liberally tinted media narrative fantasy land that you live in with farting unicorns and dancing trolls. But the rest of us who actually have 1 ounce of integrity, which is an ounce more than you and your network and the mainstream networks, we can sit here and say, give us the fact, let us chew on the information. But no, the Democrat message, the liberal progressive message is, you don't know, we know better than you. We're the ones who are educated. We're the ones who are trained. We're the ones with the knowledge, and we're the ones with the experience to tell you exactly what you need to know. Hence why in many schools right now, they're not teaching children how to think. They're teaching children what to think. And I dare say that Farhan is a victim of the public education system where he was indoctrinated towards hating his country and hating himself. You guys sit here and you talk about this whole idea last week when you had this guy Morg out there defending Devil Shoes Boy. And he's sitting there saying, well, the shadow life of the sins that the church and the morally upright tell you that you should be ashamed of these different things. You should celebrate these things. But, it's the church and all these other people that have been speaking down to you, telling you you have no value. I'm sorry. That's actually the message that comes from progressivism. When you sit here and you look at the no man in the house rule, let's get into that for a second there before I get back to your story, Lester, that talks about the whole idea that they said to black women, we as the government will give you more money if you kick the black man out of your home. So we saw in the 70s and the 80s, black women being more empowered and feeling like they've got all this power to do whatever they want to. It wasn't just black women. It was low income housing that basically said, we will give you more money, but you got to get the guy out because we're the new baby daddy. They're the baby daddy who's going to sit there and pay you all the child support, but we're the baby daddy who's going to give you more money too, not just from his pocket, but from our pocket if you continue to sell your soul to us and follow what we say. The degradation in the home, the degradation of the family has happened because they've allowed too much government interference, and actually I would dare say too much media interference that has lowered the education and the processing, the intellectual processing of data that needs to happen in every household. People making votes, and they should be taking a lot of tests before they have the right to actually pull a lever or push a button for a candidate. This is so sad. Take care, Linda. This is so sad where people are being manipulated and they don't want to hear the truth. That yes, Carolyn, selling their soul to the devil. Oh my goodness, Lord help us. Lord help us. We are in this point. Let's get back to Lester for a second here because the hypocrisy is astounding.
The old joke in newsrooms is, darn, another great story ruined by over-checking. But checking and verifying is what journalists do. But it would be arrogant to hold to the idea that we, traditional journalists, are the only gatekeepers of information, that only we know the facts and what matters. Every day we make decisions about what stories we'll cover, how long that story will be, what angles we will explore, and where it will fit into the program. Please know, these decisions are a product of discussions that begin early in the morning and continue right up to when we go on the air. The NBC Nightly News brand is more than 75 years old. The program's reputation for integrity and trust has been hard-earned, and it's
Okay, so here we're about to get to the point where he starts talking about the fairness is overrated. But you have to understand that before all this, he was talking about the fourth estate. Now, I want you to understand something. This is actually something I got from The Sun. This is from an article from The Sun. Why is the media called the fourth estate? The term hails from a European concept of the three estates of realm, the clergy, of the realm, the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners. Power in the most democratic countries is divided between the legislature and the executive and the judiciary. It has come to symbolize the media or press as a segment of society that has an indirect but key role in influencing the political system. Nowadays, the term is often used as a collective noun to refer to all journalists. But I have to go to the previous statement. It has come to symbolize the media or press as a segment of society that has an indirect but key role in influencing the political system. How do you think that more people can actually vote for Barack Obama, who comes off the scene, who he's done nothing, but they didn't want to report the fact that, 220 plus times he only voted present? When critical laws were being made to help the American people, he just said, I'm here. He didn't vote on it, but this is what you voted for, and you basically said, oh, this is the greatest administration and transparency. No, we're going to be the most transparent, scandal-free administration. But we've had, and what did the media report on the Fast and Furious? No, they didn't vote on the Fast and Furious. Did the media vote on the AP scandal? No, they didn't vote on it. Did they vote on the IRS scandal? Scantily did they vote on it, and then they moved on because it was a quote-unquote nothing burger. It was nothing but far-fetched right-wing conspiracy theories that we're not going to move on. But the whole idea that you can have a whole bunch of people, that supposedly 80 million people voted for Joe Biden because the media chose to willfully hide the data. They pushed the narrative hard. I mean, think about this. Hunter Biden's out there laughing about, I'm going to be cleared about my laptop. Of course you're going to be cleared because the laptop has been wiped and destroyed like those crackberries from Hillary Clinton and her email server. So most likely 10-1, you're going to have that bleached like there's no tomorrow. Hey, media, do you know that the biggest story that's going on right now, when you talk about anti-gun legislation and people lying on forums to actually get data, that Hunter Biden just admitted that he lied on a 4473, which is a federal offense that gets him up to 10 years in jail and a $250,000 fine. This literally should be a bigger story than Matt Gaetz. But it's not. The idea that you had the Hispanic man who killed his family, it should be dominating the news cycle, but it's not. They're going to find everything else. The virus, we can focus on the virus. We can focus on all these other different things. But the fact that the son of the president of the United States of America lied on a federal form, and basically the Secret Service and his girlfriend at the time helped him get rid of the data. They tried to go into the store to pull the 4473 and remove this. This story should be the biggest thing that's going on when it comes to the idea of gun control, because here it is, you have a politician's son who broke the law to get a gun, basically, and tried to destroy the evidence, and guess what now? The girlfriend who got rid of the evidence is basically guilty of a crime here. Because her first duty was basically to report Hunter for what he did. But we're not going to talk about that, are we? Hey, because critical thinking asks the questions. How is it possible, and why is it that Hunter is not in jail? Why is it that Hunter is not in jail just on the allegations? Because remember, Lester, you said fairness is overrated, or you're about to say that fairness is overrated. So then the case is that we're looking at this thing unfold here, and the story and the half side that was produced about the laptop long before Hunter started saying that the laptop was hacked by Russians should have been enough to have him in jail, because that's all you guys need to persecute and prosecute Donald Trump conservatives and anyone who doesn't go with the Gestapo message. And if you guys haven't seen it, there's this amazing video of a pastor in Canada kicking out the police and kicking out tyrants who are trying to usurp their authority of COVID power on a church in Canada. And if you haven't watched the news, look at the story of the black flight attendant on Virgin Airlines who basically who forced the whole plane, all the passengers on a plane, to deplane because a 2-year-old who should not be a COVID concern did not want to wear a mask. So this person high up on power trips and power control basically kicks everybody off of a plane because a 2-year-old didn't want to wear her mask. Unfortunately, the best thing happened. He was deplaned, and he was no longer on that flight. We don't want to talk about that, do we? We don't want to talk about the collateral damage that happens when you put so much power in the hands of people. And this idea that Biden's saying that you won't have to produce a vaccine card, you won't have to produce an app just to basically get around and function in society. Understand this and understand this clearly. They're not telling you the truth, Lester. You're not telling the truth, and you never should have got an award. If there was any award you should have got, it should have been the triple dung dog face pony liar. I'm lying, folks, whatever it is, award, because that's what you should have got. Triple Poopio awards because of what you're saying. Let's get back to your lies.
Something we don't take for granted. But we know we don't just compete with the folks on the other channels anymore. The democratization of journalism, made possible by smartphones and the internet, has opened a whole new hyperspeed network of raw and often unfiltered information. In the meantime, traditional journalists spent the last 4 years being labeled enemies of the people, blasted from the world's biggest megaphone. And it didn't come without a price. It's hurt the standing of journalism.
Here's the thing about it. Enemy of the people. Yes, you are an enemy of the people. Listen. The Bible says that Satan is the father of lies. The Bible. So when you look at the word of God calling Satan a father of lies, and what does he call towards humanity? Humanity's enemy. Because all he does is seek to deceive and destroy humanity. And that's exactly what the mainstream media, the fourth estate, has sought to do, is to manipulate, deceive, and destroy humanity. When you go out of your way to destroy Donald Trump with your narratives, you are an enemy to the people. When you go out of your way to only present white racism, systemic racism, white privilege, and all these other different things, and your wokeness message that's coming through your airways, you are an enemy to the people. And see, and a lot of the people who are following you and listening to you and believing you, God is making a mockery of them because of the fact that they keep thinking that they're going to get away with the lies and the deception. And God's saying, you know what? You keep acting like this. You keep acting like you're going to get away with this. I'm going to show you something, and I'm going to show you something really clear. You are not going to dishonor me. You do not say that wokeness and your wokeness theology and your woke ideology is some substitute of the truth or a representation of the truth or a hyper representation of the truth, because it's built on falsehoods and lies right from the pit of hell. Yes, Lester Holt, the former president Donald Trump was correct in saying that the media is an enemy to the people. The press has done its damage. You're only damaged because you are standing on the faulty pillars of truth, but all it is nothing but glorified bias. Bias against the president, bias against conservatives, bias against liberty. And God's putting an end to your charade of integrity.
But we couldn't look away because they were new and different and had to be reported. I'm asked a lot now how the news media recovers from the damage. Let me first say the damage only goes so deep, as millions and millions of Americans still turn to news organizations like mine for trusted information.
And you know what? And those million people, and those millions of people who keep looking at you are the millions of manipulated people who are manipulated, who lack the discernment skills, the critical thinking that you were talking about earlier, to see beyond the manipulation, to see beyond the man behind the screen. The man behind the screen, filled with a whole lot of lies and aftersheen. Let's get back to this.
In this period, I'm sure will fill plenty of books and be studied in classrooms, maybe even here. But I have a few early observations I'll share about where this moment brings us and what we can learn. Number one is, I think it's become clearer that fairness is overrated. Well, before you run off and tweet that headline, let me explain a bit. The idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in. That the sun sets in the west is a fact. Any contrary view does not deserve our time or attention. Now, I know recent events assure that you won't have to look far to find more current and relevant examples. I think you get my point.
See, and so basically the inference here is contrary views to the idea that there was voter fraud should not be heard. So basically, you don't have to hear the other side. Now, remember, they were pushing hard. Bush lied. People died. So people kept digging for information. The narrative that there was Russian collusion put forth the idea that we have to dig until we find something that we can get Trump on. And when they couldn't find that, now they're trying to say, oh, he's interfering with Georgia. Now he's interfering with this. Oh, he lied about this. And these are all the grounds to turn around and impeach him. They keep digging and looking. And when they're done tearing up the football field, looking for the gopher, looking for the groundhog, then they'll basically decide that they're going to put down more dirt and start digging all over again because they believe fresh new dirt and a fresh new dig is somehow, some way going to find the truth that they've been, the premeditated truth that they're looking for. The fairness overrated. Here it is. He says the fairness is overrated. But when we sit there, and if that's the case, the moment that Donald Trump said fake news, there was no need to debate with him. We're going with your standard. See, this is the thing about it. All you people who are critical thinkers, you're anti-Trump. Understand, listen, I'm not anti-Trump. But I will call out Trump. I'll call out Biden. I'll call out whoever it is. I'll call out myself if I'm wrong. That's what we need more of. Not just critical thinkers, but people with integrity to actually admit when they're wrong. Maybe our society would function better if we had people getting off of their high horses and being able to admit, I did it wrong. I got it wrong. I was fooled. I was lied to. The number of Obama supporters who were looking for their Obama checks, they were looking for their Obama money and all that stuff that they were hoping for. And a lot of them started speaking years later. He never showed up. News don't want to talk about that. Oh, how he said, if you want your plan, if you want your doctor, you can keep that. That was a lie. That was a scandal in the scandal-free administration. But we can't talk about that, can we? We can't talk about that, can we? Crying, stinking shame. Crying, stinking shame.
Decisions to not give unsupported arguments equal time are not a dereliction of journalistic responsibility or some kind of agenda. In fact, it's just the opposite. Providing an open platform for misinformation, for anyone to come say whatever they want, especially when issues of public health and safety are at stake, can be quite dangerous.
You see how dangerous he is that he is using parcel tongue. For those of you who are Harry Potter fans, understand that this is what Harry spoke to when he was sitting there. Was it parcel tongue? That when he could speak to the snakes and sit there and manipulate the snakes and everything like that? Yeah, parcel tongue. Because this snake, Lester Holt, is this snake sits here and says, because there's not enough supportive evidence to actually entertain the idea of looking at the story. Nothing but hogwash. When you had countless amounts of data showing you the irregularities in the vote. And again, let's look and listen to the message. The news media reported that there wasn't enough of mass voter fraud to basically sway the election. So let's basically say that, let's take out the word mass, because everybody is focusing on that mass and making themselves nothing but drop the M. That you turn around and you look at this where they have decided, well, you admitted that there was voter fraud taking place. So why don't we go off and you take that small crumb and investigate it? Because all you needed was less than a crumb to investigate anything on Donald Trump. So then that by your means of doing your due diligence, you would have been required to go off and do this. But public health, you see how they moved away from the voter fraud and now even these allegations of what's happening with the virus and hydroxychloroquine. Even though you've had thousands of professional doctors who have served communities and served the country for years, and that substantial evidence does not matter in sharing and having a healthy discussion on the concerns of this virus, what the mRNA stuff is doing, and how you can't be unvaccinated once you get this. They don't want to talk about the deaths. They don't want to, and what do they keep doing? They keep censoring the voices that are contrary opinions, because at that point they have to admit that the administration, the liars, the science has been lying to us and manipulating us. Listen, I'm running out of time here. Brad Staggs and the Daily Mojo is up next. Bard and Ren, and Bjorn and Ren, the Daily Mojo's up next. I'm your host, Watson Create. Tomorrow I get into 2nd Chronicles. For now, I'm signing off. I'm checking out. God bless. Goodbye. Live long.